In order to create a balanced diet, we need to think about long term. We need to think about the fact that we're not on a diet, we are making lifestyle choices. And this is a positive thing. This is about all the wonderful nutrient-dense foods that we can eat rather than denial. So we want to adopt a healthy balance, we want to have the building blocks in place, and we want to be consistent. So in order to achieve this, I want you to think about a few things. You want to eat 3 meals a day with a snack if you get really hungry, because if you get really hungry, we can tend to overeat at meal times. You want to think about your diet. It needs to be varied, and we want to think about it as being nature intended, so that we use whole foods rather than processed foods. It wants to contain, as I say, a variety of fruit and vegetables, lean protein, essential fats, so that we get all of the nutrients that we need. Now, in the next video, I'm going to talk about what your meal plate looks like, but essentially it wants to contain all the macronutrients, the proteins, the fats and the carbohydrates, and the vitamins and the minerals, so that you are getting everything that you need so that you have the energy to enjoy your life, but it's also enjoyable and it's realistic. So remember, in order to achieve a healthy, happy, balanced diet for the long term, you need to adopt healthy habits and you need to be consistent. Once you've done this, what I suggest you do, and I suggest this with many people and I adopt it myself, is I adopt something called the 80-20 rule. This means that 80% of the time I'm following my healthy diet, and 20% of the time I'm allowing myself to have treats, things like a slice of cake or a glass of wine or a bowl of chips. But it is only 20% of the time, and this is not a license for you to go crazy. But what it means is that you're never denying yourself those foods that you enjoy. Because if you deny yourself those foods, eventually they will become so, you've denied them for so long, they become so hard to resist that you'll then overeat on them. So this is a really good way of enjoying those foods, but maintaining some kind of balance and consistency. So when you do, or you go out to a restaurant and you want to enjoy a 3-course meal, go out, enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it, and then you adopt your healthy diet 80% of the time. And remember, it's about adopting these healthy habits, remaining consistent and thinking about it as a lifestyle change rather than ever being on a diet. Okay, so what should your meal plate look like? You want to make sure your meal plate is balanced so that you're getting all the micronutrients that you need. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about proteins and fats and carbs and vitamins and minerals. So your proteins can be things like meat and fish and dairy and pulses and legumes and soya and tempeh and eggs. Your carbs want to be made up of healthy carbs like brown rice, brown pasta, quinoa, buckwheat, legumes, and your fruit and vegetables want to be a colourful array of fruit and vegetables. But what kind of proportions should these be in? Now, often I can find or see that people have very few vegetables on their plate and more carbs. So, in order to keep this quite simplistic, this is your meal plate. So if you divide your meal plate into a half and 2 quarters, a quarter of your plate should take up your protein, a quarter should have your carbs, and the half of the plate should have your vegetables. And if you follow this simple, really easy to follow meal plate and keep half of your plate full of vegetables, you are not going to go wrong and you're not going to overeat, providing that you have a variety of different kinds of food. You're going to get all the essential nutrients that you need. And because vegetables, for example, are high in vitamins and minerals and they're low in calories and high in fibre, they support a healthy weight. So remember, meal plate, half fruit and veg, quarter protein, quarter carbs. It's a really good, easy way to visualize your plate when you are helping yourself to your meal. Carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates are one of your main macronutrients. They're your main energy source. Now, you can get energy from fats and proteins, yes, but your body has to work much harder to get the energy from these food sources, and it prefers to use carbohydrate. Now, carbohydrate can get demonized, it can get a bad rap, but what we want to think about is the type of carbohydrates that we're eating. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But we need carbohydrate for energy. We need it for heart function, muscle function. We need it for our brain. Now, our brain uses glucose. It's its primary energy source. And despite the fact that the brain is only 2% of your overall body weight, it uses up 20% of your energy every single day. So remember, we need carbohydrates. Now, there are three types of carbohydrates. They're sugars, and they're starches, and they're fibre. And they're divided up into complex carbohydrates and simple carbohydrates. And when we're talking about complex carbohydrates, we're talking about carbohydrates that have longer chains of sugars and fibre. So the energy is released slower, and they fill you up. Things like brown rice, things like starchy vegetables such as sweet potatoes and legumes. And our simple carbohydrates give us instant energy, and they spike our blood sugar. And they are things like table sugar and white carbohydrates such as white pasta and white bread. So when we eat our carbohydrate, we want to think about eating those complex carbohydrates that fill us up and release the energy slowly, as well as keeping our digestion in check because of the fibre that it contains. And the fibre is a type of carbohydrate. It aids digestion, keeping us fuller for longer. It also helps to keep our cholesterol levels in check. Now, when we talk about carbohydrates, we also talk about the glycemic index of a carbohydrate. And what that refers to is the speed at which the energy is released when you eat that carbohydrate in your food compared to sugar, pure sugar. So the higher the glycemic index of the food, you're going to release that energy quicker and have what we call these spikes, such as white bread, white pasta, chocolate bars and sweets. And things that have a low GI are your complex carbohydrates, your brown rice, your brown pasta, your sweet potatoes, your butternut squash, your quinoa and your legumes. So they are your preferred carbohydrate source. Now remember guys, we need carbohydrate for energy. And if we don't have it, what's the first thing that's going to go? 20% of our energy expenditure is used by our brain. So think about the types of carbohydrate that you eat. Fats. Fats are one of your major macronutrients. They are essential for health. We need fat in our diet. Please don't be scared of fat. It's essential because we can't make it in our diet, therefore we need to consume it. Now, I often find that women particularly are scared of fat. Fat can actually help aid weight loss because it keeps us fuller for longer, and it's essential for healthy hormones. Now, as I say, we need fat in our diet for many functions. We need it for our brain health, our heart health, for blood clotting. It helps to control inflammation. We need it for nerve function. Every single cell in our body contains this double fat layer, this biphospholipid layer. So we need fat in our diet. We need it for our skin health, our hair and our nails. We also need it to help absorb the fat-soluble vitamins in our diet, which are A, D, E and K. And if we don't have enough fat in our diet, we're not able to absorb these really important vitamins. Also, the fat in our diet, we do use it sometimes for energy, and it protects our vital organs. Now, fat is nutrient dense. For every gram of fat, we get 9 calories. So it is possible to overeat on it. So you want to watch how much you're eating, but you want to think about having a variety of fat in your diet. From meat and fish and avocados and nuts and seeds and olive oil and coconut oil. Think about the variety of fat that you're eating. Now, I want to just touch on cholesterol because cholesterol has been demonized in the past. We make cholesterol in our bodies. Our brain particularly needs cholesterol. If you eat too much cholesterol producing food, your body will actually make less cholesterol and excrete it. So please don't be scared of fat. It's essential for your health. Protein, another macronutrient. Every cell in our body contains protein. It's essential for growth and repair. And the building blocks of proteins are something called amino acids, which we get from our diets. Now, we need protein for growth and repair, so we need it for cells and tissues and organs. We need it for our body as a whole. So we need to think about our bone development. We think of muscles, heart health. We need it for enzymes and hormones and brain neurotransmitters. We need it for our skin, our hair, our teeth and our nails. Protein is essential for health. Now, there are two types of protein that we can eat in our diet. First of all, animal sources. Now, animal sources are called complete proteins because they contain the whole chain of amino acids. So we're thinking meat and fish and dairy and eggs. But vegetarian sources of protein are what we call incomplete. They don't contain all the amino acids. So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, you need to just make sure you eat a varied diet, a variety of beans and legumes, so that you get a complete range of the essential amino acids. The good thing about eating protein, I would suggest you eat it at every meal. It keeps you fuller for longer. It will stop you from overeating at the next meal and aid weight loss, as well as, of course, providing the building blocks for your body. Now, the recommended daily allowance is 0.8 to 1 gram per kilogram of body weight of protein. It is very difficult to eat too much protein on a daily basis. But what I would say is, yes, it can cause bone problems and kidney damage, but really only if you have an issue. So protein is good. Include it in every meal as part of your varied, balanced diet.